Sophomores, good morning, or whatever time you are watching this. I hope you have a fabulous Monday today. We are going to get started on chapter 35 for Wheelock. So, as always, we're going to start with the old vocab. Now, this is particularly important for this chapter because one of the new things in this chapter is going to be a dative use with special verbs. So it's going to be important that as you're learning your vocab, you notice which verbs take a dative object and which don't. So, as always, please practice these out loud. Like we say them in class, go ahead and say them with me during the video. This is on page 297 for chapter 35. All right, here we go. Aistos, aistatis, feminine, summer. Janua, januai, feminine, door. Pectus, pectoris, neuter, breast. Primium, primii, neuter, reward. Iratus, irata, iratum, angry. Antepono, anteponera, anteposui, antepositum, to put before. Foeo, foera, foi, fotum, to comfort. Ignosco, ignoscra, ignoi, ignotum, plus the dative, to forgive. Impero, imperare, imperavi, imperatum, plus dative, to command. Miror, mirari, miratisum, to marvel at. Noceo, nocera, nocui, nocatum, to harm. Nubo, nubera, nupsi, nuptum, to cover. Parco, parcera, pepperci, parsurum, to spare. Pareo, parera, parui, to obey. Persuadeo, persuadera, persuasi, persuasum, to persuade. Placeo, placera, placui, placatum, to please. Sapio, sapera, sapivi, to have good taste. Servio, servira, servivi, servitum, to serve. Studeo, studera, studui, to be eager for. Subrideo, subridera, subrisi, subrisum, to smile upon. All right, that is your vocab list for chapter 35. Right now, I'm thinking we'll probably have a quiz beginning of next week, hopefully on a Monday or something like that. So please be preparing for that vocab list. I know it's a little bit longer, so want to give you a full week there. Now for this chapter 35, it's a little bit of an interesting one. You're not going to get really any new forms this chapter, but they are going to give you a few new uses of the dative. So I would strongly encourage you to just read through this chapter. It's pages 294, 295, 296. Okay, but I want to briefly talk with you about these uses of the dative. So up to this point, we have had the dative being used as an indirect object. Okay, so for example, if you said something like, I gave roses to the girl would be your indirect object. Okay, and we've also had the dative being used as the dative of agent. And this is a fairly rare use, okay? It's only really with the passive periphrastic, So, for example, the famous Carthage must be destroyed. If you wanted to say Carthage must be destroyed by the Romans, what you would do is simply put the Romans into the dative case, and that would be the dative of agent. Now, in chapter 35, we get three more uses of the dative. The first one we come across is something we've actually already seen before, but Wheelock has not officially given it to you. This is known as the dative with adjectives. Quite simply, certain adjectives will have a dative to which the adjective applies. So, for example, you in your last translation had a sentence that's something like this or that man seems equal to a god. Okay, in that instance, to a god is the dative case. It's going with the adjective par, which means equal, equal to a god. Okay. Some other common ones you'll see, similis very often will have a dative. So and so is similar to so and so. Okay. Couple other ones they mention the word faithful. So he is faithful to his country or something like that. Friendly. Okay. The man is friendly to his neighbor. Okay. Dear, the word carus, that one also very often has a dative. So, you, my students, are very dear to me. That would be a dative with adjectives. Okay? Now, in your vocab list, you will notice that quite a few of these verbs have a rather little awkward first definition they give you, okay? And they say plus dative with them. Now, as you are looking at those, these verbs, so for example, let's take parco, okay? The very first definition they give you is to be lenient to, which is a bit of a mouthful. It's a lot easier to just say spare, okay? But a lot of these verbs will have a dative object rather than your traditional accusative object, okay? And probably the easiest way to go about these is just to know your vocab, know which verbs will have a dative object with them. And Wheelock gives you a nice kind of explanation for why this is, that they're actually intransitive verbs and indicate a direction towards so-and-so. I think, honestly, though, it's probably just easiest to know which verbs take a dative and which don't. There aren't a ton of them, but, there are a handful. Probably the most important new dative use, though, is going to be the dative with compound verbs. This is on page 296. And the dative with compound verbs is one in which if a verb's meaning is changed significantly by like a prefix or something like that, a lot of times that verb is going to have a dative object. So it's a lot of Latin verbs, as I think you probably know, are simply taken from a main verb, and then you put a prefix on it. A lot of times, a preposition or something like that. So that's what these compounds verbs are. That's what we're talking about. So, for example, the verb video means to see. Okay, but if you put the prefix in front of it, in video, that means to envy. Okay, and seeing and envying are quite different things. So the verb in video, being a compound, is going to take a dative object. Okay, and there are several others. Again, I do recommend you read this chapter 294, 296, and Wheelock will give you some good explanation on why these things are with the dative case. So that's about all there is to this chapter. Just some new dative uses. So that brings our total up, I believe, to 5. So just to recap one more time, the indirect object, that's our very first one. Then we had the dative of agent, which was with passive paraphrastics. Pretty rare use. Then we have dative with adjectives. That's a new one this chapter. Okay, so that would be something like I am similar to my brother. Okay, something like that. Then we had the dative with special verbs. Okay, and those special verbs, they give you several of them in your vocab list. So if it says plus dative, that's a good clue. And then lastly, you have dative with compound verbs, and this is where you take a regular verb and you put a prefix in front of it. Okay, and if it changes the meaning significantly, very often that will take a dative object. Okay, so that is what you've got for this chapter. You don't have any written homework tonight. Okay, keep reading the Aeneid. Okay, remember you need to have books 1 and 2 read by Friday. Okay, and you'll have a discussion post for each book and a reading check for each book. And I'll have the stuff for book 2 up hopefully pretty soon. Sorry, I haven't quite finished that yet. And then vocab quiz for this chapter, hopefully next week, probably Monday. All right. And feel free, shoot me any questions you got. You can use that not Snapchat. Gosh, I don't have that. You can use that chat feature on LMS. That works well. And please also remember to write here on the class wall, just so I can mark you present for today. All right. Hope you guys have a fabulous Monday. Love you guys. Talk to you later.